Have you noticed how certain moments feel less like events and more like déjà vu? A careless comment, a sudden silence, a betrayal, and you are not merely annoyed, you are undone. It's as if the world keeps finding a particular weak spot in you over and over, and you cannot figure out why. That recurrence is not cosmic cruelty. It's not random karma. It's an architecture inside you, a pattern that keeps running in the background, invisible and decisive. Today, we're going to map that invisible architecture. We will stay faithful to Jung's central insight while making the maps practical, modern, and hard-hitting. This is not a soft pep talk. I will push you to see what you have been avoiding. I will give you tools to stop being a passive replay of old scenes. If you are tired of being knocked down by the same triggers, stay with me. This work is slow, sometimes painful, and it is the only route to a different life. Jung used the word shadow to describe the parts of us we refuse to accept. Anger, shame, envy, dependency, neediness, cruelty, cowardice. Those parts are not moral stains to be hidden forever. They are psychic energy that, if denied, will shape your life from the basement. Think of your psyche like a house. The conscious mind lives in the tidy, well-lit rooms. The shadow is the cellar. Dark, messy, full of things you shoved downstairs because they embarrassed you or because others said they were unacceptable. You can renovate the kitchen, hang new curtains, learn better posture. But if the foundation is cracked, the house will settle and creak when the seasons change. This is why people who lecture about kindness from a podium sometimes behave monstrously in private. Their public virtue is a response to a private denial. The more rigidly you insist, "I am not like that," the more the denied part exists as a pressure chamber, waiting for a leak. Here is the practical truth. Denial doesn't eliminate capacity. It merely reroutes it. A denied tenderness can turn into manipulativeness. A denied anger can become chronic resentment. A denied shame becomes perfectionism. The content of the shadow is often predictable if you look at what enrages you most in others. What irritates you is a diagnostic. How to begin? It starts with radical noticing. Noticing means catching the automatic, immediate reaction and not treating it as the final truth. When something sets you off, a swipe of contempt, a tone of dismissal, pause and ask, what inside of me recognizes this? Which unhealed scene does this sound like? Name it. The naming reduces the charge. This is not therapy light. Integration of the shadow requires time, ritual, and precise, honest attention. But it is possible. People who have done this work don't stop feeling. They stop losing themselves in their feelings. They become whole. One of Jung's most practical teachings is the concept of projection. The concept is simple. You take something that you cannot accept as part of your inner world, project it onto someone else, and then treat it as if it belongs to them. It is a kind of psychic fast food, quick and emotionally satisfying, but ultimately toxic. But why does this matter? Because most relationship conflict is projection disguised as discovery. You think the problem lies with the other person, that they are selfish, cold, or unreliable, and so you react accordingly. But often, the trait that enrages you is one that you deny in yourself. The liar who infuriates you triggers your own fear of exposure. The controlling partner who drives you mad reminds you of your own childhood submission. When you react, You aren't dealing with the reality of the other person, but with a story inside you. Here's a concrete habit to help you break this pattern. Map your reactions. For a week, keep a log of conflicts. After any argument or emotional spike, write down the following 3 things. 1. What happened? 2. How you felt? And 3. Which early memory or scenario this echoes. Be forensic. This is not victim blaming. It is intelligence gathering. Over time, patterns will emerge. You will begin to see recurring plot lines, such as the approval script, the rejection script, and the abandonment script. When you recognize your projections, something radical happens. You can respond rather than react. Rather than launching into accusations, you can tell yourself, "This is my old wound speaking." You can address the wound. You can set a boundary without demonizing the other person. Projection is the single biggest cause of repeated relationship breakdowns. Stop projecting, and your relationships will change. By the time we reach adulthood, we have learned to adopt different roles, or masks, that fit the expectations of our family, culture, or circumstances. Jung referred to this collective performance as the persona. Initially, the persona is adaptive. It helps us to survive. However, when the mask becomes your identity, you are merely existing on the surface. There are 2 dangers with the persona. First, you confuse the mask for the self. Secondly, you rely on the mask to manage shame and vulnerability. The result is a brittle self that is excellent at making an impression, but poor at intimacy. Consider how often people demonstrate competence in order to avoid appearing needy. Competence becomes a currency, and help becomes risky because it might expose a lack of it. Or consider those who display moral superiority. Underneath, they may harbor private rage or cowardice. So how can you dismantle the persona without burning up your social life? 2 moves. First, practice strategic authenticity. Pick one small social setting, a group chat, a team meeting, or a family dinner, and make one small, honest disclosure that might lead to disapproval. Not a confessional that shocks the room, just a modest admission. If it goes badly, you will survive. If it goes well, you can expand possible connections. Secondly, cultivate private competence in feeling. Learn to tolerate discomfort without seeking external praise. This will weaken the persona's hold. True individuation requires the persona to be a tool, not an identity. The mask should be conscious, flexible, and functional, not the whole show. Repression, or pushing feelings and memories out of conscious awareness, does not make them harmless. Instead, it buries them, where they continue to influence your life. This hidden labor manifests as symptoms such as insomnia, compulsive behaviors, chronic anger, addiction, unexplained depression, and an uncanny ability to sabotage success. Jung famously said that the unconscious communicates through symptoms when ignored. Symptoms are not moral failures. They are a form of communication from a system trying to be seen. If your body or behavior repeatedly signals distress, treat it as data. Ask yourself, what is the message? To be blunt, moralizing about your symptoms, telling yourself that you should be stronger or that you are weak for feeling this way, is counterproductive. Moralizing amplifies shame, buries the message, and increases the cost of recovery. Instead, learn the language of symptoms. Map them. Where do they appear? When do they spike? What precedes them? Over time, you will see causal links emerge. This is where professional help can be invaluable. A therapist trained in depth psychology can correlate dreams, body states, and relational patterns in order to locate the source. However, even without a therapist, paying close attention can reduce the severity of symptoms. Journaling, body awareness, slow breathing, and setting boundaries all minimize the unconscious's need to scream. The secret is to treat symptoms as messengers rather than enemies. Listen, ask what wants recognition. Give them a minimal, consistent response. The loudness will subside. Jung elevated dreams to a position of importance in psychic life. Dreams are not meaningless. They are symbolic communications from the unconscious mind. When you dream, the unconscious uses images because it knows how to use them best. You don't need to be poetic to interpret dreams. All you need is curiosity. Keep a notebook by your bed. Immediately upon waking, jot down whatever comes to mind: a color, a person, an action. Over time, patterns will emerge, such as recurring archetypes, repetitive places, and behaviors of dream figures. But beyond dreams, creativity is an accessible portal. If the unconscious mind communicates through symbols, then art, music, and movement are the languages that translate them. A single improvised tune, a charcoal sketch of an emotion, or a 10-minute free writing session can express the inner self in a way that thinking alone cannot. Here's an exercise. Once a week, perform a 15-minute symbolic act. No evaluation, no cleverness. Draw the shape of the feeling you are avoiding. Make an ugly mark. Name it. Then ask yourself, what does this shape want? Who does this represent in me? The answer often emerges not in words, but in the sense of feeling that follows creation. Engaging the imagination helps the unconscious feel attended to. When this happens, it ceases to hijack your waking life so forcefully. Individuation is not a one-off event. It is an ongoing process. It is an ongoing process of becoming more whole. The classroom is everyday life. The subjects are rituals, boundaries, and the slow art of self-parenting. Rituals are not just religious embellishments. They are embodied commitments that transform intention into habit. A simple nightly ritual, such as 10 minutes of honest journaling, lighting a candle, and saying a sentence aloud to your younger self, sends a signal to the body. I am aligned. Rituals calibrate the nervous system. Boundaries are the logistics of inner care. If you do not set boundaries, your resources leak into other people's plans. Boundaries may look simple in theory, but are difficult to implement. Start small. Allocate one 30-minute protected time slot each day and communicate it clearly. Practice the language. I won't take part in this conversation today. Or, I need to step away. This is not passive-aggressive behavior. It is adult. Setting boundaries teaches people how to treat you and, more importantly, how to behave around you. Reparenting is the slowest and most tender process. Many of us grew up with partial parents, caregivers who were present in some moments and absent in others. Reparenting is a discipline in which you become the reliable adult you needed. It's telling your inner child, "You are seen. I will keep you safe." In practice, this could mean leaving a weekly recorded message for your younger self, providing concrete affirmations rather than platitudes, or making and keeping a promise to yourself. Combining these elements creates a sense of purpose, establishes boundaries, and provides the inner environment necessary for reparenting. The resulting architecture is called individuation. We are not islands. The individual shadow mirrors the social shadow. Societies repress collective feelings such as shame, fear, and historical guilt, and these repressed feelings influence politics, scapegoating, and group violence. Jung warned that when groups deny their shadow, they project it onto minorities, strangers, or political scapegoats. This is not an abstract remark. Consider how social media amplifies projection. Collective anxieties latch onto public figures, and crowds mobilize around a simplified target. The personal shadow and the social shadow dance together. When we undertake our personal development in private, we reduce the pool of energy available for toxic group dynamics. When we avoid making this effort, our private denials fuel public malice. Therefore, individuation is an ethical act. By seeking personal peace, you are also reducing the psychic fuel for collective destruction. The personal and the political are intertwined. Do your inner work, and you will be quietly diffusing a broader crisis. You've read a map, not a manual. The map names the cellar where your unattended parts reside: shadow, projection, and persona. These terms are only useful if they teach you to see things differently. When the world pulls your thread and you unravel, don't start by blaming the weather. Start by asking yourself, which old scene has been stitched back into this moment? Notice how quickly the mind invents a story to protect you. This story will make you feel as though you are in control because it points outward. Jung's hard lesson is that control via blame is cowardice dressed as power. The real skill lies in interruption, stopping the chain, naming the echo, and refusing its automatic script. This is not therapy for comfort. It is a form of discipline. Relationships are not just dramas to be survived. They are diagnostic tools. The person who sets you off is not just being cruel. They are a mirror showing you where you are vulnerable. The temptation is to correct the mirror. A wiser move is to address the loose seam inside yourself. This process is private and sometimes boring, and it does not guarantee applause. But it does guarantee fewer hijackings. Do not seek slogans. Don't look for quick rituals that end up as Instagram posts. Instead, seek one simple interruption and make it a habit. When you feel triggered, before you speak, silently ask yourself, which old scene is this? Name it in a word. No moralizing, no explanation, just identification. This pause transforms reactivity into evidence. Evidence becomes choice. A choice leads to a different life. This private labor has a civic dimension. Unprocessed private denial fuels public fury. Doing this work is quietly political because it starves the mob of psychic fuel. Therefore, your small acts of attention are not only for your own benefit, but also act as an antidote to collective madness. I won't make it easy for you. Instead, I offer you one unglamorous test. For the next 72 hours, note down every automatic response you have, and before answering, identify the trigger. If you can make this interruption a habit, you will have taken the first step towards freedom. The ability to choose how you respond. That is the work. That is the challenge. Will you be the editor of your story, or its mindless narrator?